Hello, everyone. Welcome back to End Zone Scoop. I'm Liz. Joining me are my co-hosts Dana and Shona. Today, we're going to be talking about injuries across the league and what it means to those teams, the current playoff standings, and the coaches in the hot seat. But before we get into it, for those joining us live, we do have a chat function. So if you've got any questions or even just something to say during the show, please drop that in. But ladies, it's great to see you both. We're heading into Thanksgiving week. How are you both, and how are you going to be spending it?
Well, I have 1,000 people at my house, and I will have 1,000 people in my house. My house is really the only one that it's very centrally located, and there's enough room for everybody, so everyone ends up at my house for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And that's okay. I don't mind it. We don't have to travel. We can kind of do what I want. I can have a couple glasses of wine and not worry about it, like all that good stuff. But lots of food, lots of fun. There'll be football, at least during the day for Dana, because as many of you guys know now, I'm very vocal on how I do not watch the Seahawks 49ers games. Refuse. Won't do it. I'll watch it after, but I don't watch it live. And so we will watch those day games, which should be, they're a great tradition with the Cowboys always playing and the Lions always playing. So it's a lot of fun. So yeah. What are you guys up to? Do you guys even do Thanksgiving? Like what happens? What's going on over there?
So I only celebrated it when I was in Seattle. So like that kind of, doesn't count because I was in America. So I had to celebrate.
Everything's shut. You have nothing else to do.
Well, I loved it. We're in the hostel and they all cooked and I ate a shit ton of pie.
Yeah.
I had a mound of food and they were like, damn girl, you can eat. I'm like, telling you. I'm like, this is how we do Christmas dinner in the UK. I'm having this twice.
But that's what it is, though. It's basically it's a Christmas dinner. We're kind of used to it that way. So
yeah, and they were so like,
yeah.
I remember them being so surprised that we have turkey at Christmas. They were like, you have turkey at Christmas? They're like, oh my God. Like,
Lots of people do.
Why?
Yeah.
He's like, why? They're like, why? Why do you have turkey at Christmas? I'm like, because we don't have Thanksgiving. We don't celebrate massacring pilgrims.
Right. That's an American thing. Yeah.
I'm like, so it's just something we don't do over in the UK.
Yeah.
So that's when we have turkey.
Yeah.
It's funny. I don't really do. I do love the Thanksgiving games though. I think they're always so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a great.
That's what we celebrate.
Yeah, I don't really do the whole like turkey dinner thing because we're still working. It's not a holiday over here.
Yeah. But what I do like to, it's different this year because I'm going out, but I do like to get like all the good foods from like Hickory's or like Passion, where it's like proper American style food to celebrate Thanksgiving football. That's what we celebrate here, if anything, Thanksgiving football.
Yeah. I tend to do a Super Bowl menu every year. Which is like I make like American 4 cheese toasties, and then I also make like mini hot dog things and make it proper American. But I don't really do the same for Thanksgiving.
That's okay. You guys don't have to. We probably shouldn't either. The nice thing is that I think most Americans now have co-opted it just to a day to be thankful for your family before the chaos of the holidays kick in.
Yeah.
The funny thing is now the chaos of the holidays starts October 31st, November 1st. It doesn't stop now. Like my entire neighborhood is already completely like the outside of the house is decorated for Christmas, and it pisses me off because I will not decorate one drop before the day after Thanksgiving. It's just what I do. So it's like it used to be that kind of like a kickoff, and now it's like now it's just another day.
Yeah, like all the Christmas lights are already on in the city, and I'm like, it's only November.
Yeah,
Andy told me off the other day for putting out an advent calendar. He was like, it's November 12th, and I was like, I'm just laying
out. Yeah, nope, it's not time yet. My house is still full of pumpkins and fall and all that good stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, but yes, it is all about football for most of us now.
100%.
Well.
Definitely. Well, shall we dive into our first topic then? So, injuries across the league. It's been a tough season for a lot of really key players. Shona, what is your take on, I suppose, how these injuries are like reshaping the strategies of certain teams, and is there a team that you'd say has been hit the hardest? And how do you see them adapting?
I do think injuries have also obviously played a massive part in some teams. I think Joe Burrows is going to be a huge miss for the Bengals. I mean, that's just stating the obvious. He's their star. And I think mostly a lot of quarterbacks have faced a lot of injuries this season, and I'm not sure if that it's going to be like, season ending for some teams. Apparently not for our guy who's been now started for a team. I've forgotten his name already. You know who I'm talking about, Dana. Yeah. Can you say his name, because I've literally forgotten. His went straight out my head.
Serious? Aaron Rodgers, is that who you're talking about?
No, like the guy who's
because Aaron Rodgers thinks he's coming back this season too, which is asinine. But anyway, go ahead.
The guy who's like moved from team to team and he's actually winning
Josh
for
Dobbs.
his team. Josh Dobbs. That's it.
Yes.
I don't know if it will matter so much for Josh Dobbs, considering he's our like Ryan Fitzpatrick of 2023.
God love it.
Love it. But I do think Kirk Cousins being out, I think that will hinder the Vikings. I cannot believe I'm saying that about beige Kirk. I'm sorry, Kirk, you're no longer beige. No, we miss you. We miss you dearly. I mean, I'm not sure if Giants quarterback Daniel Jones is a massive miss. He's out as well. And obviously and I think for the Jets, this is going to sound bad. Rodgers being out has been a massive blow to them, purely because I just don't think Zach Wilson's it. And yesterday proved that he's not it. I think he threw an interception to a Bills player who'd never even caught an interception before. So, like, it's just not going well for Zach Wilson down in New York. But if you actually look at it, there's 18.75% of the league starters gone and not coming back this season. So it's a huge dent in our quarterback class. But if you look at it though, the Browns and the Bengals to me are still contenders. But I'm not sure. I know the Browns are in the playoff picture, Dana. I have to say it.
It's good. It's good. Yeah.
Without Watson too, so it's quite nice.
Yeah.
I do think the Bengals might struggle, like whether they qualify with their backup or not. I don't see the Bengals going far this postseason, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. This injury, I think every single year we're all like, oh my God, there's so many injuries and it's the worst it's ever been. And I just think that's because it's in the forefront of our mind. But there have been a lot of the starters. I mean, that's almost 20%, right? 20% of starters aren't coming back for the season. Like, how crazy is that? And so you have to look at it that way. I think quarterbacks are traditionally the ones that are missed the most. So you are going to see, that those quarterbacks that are lost for the season. I think that even Daniel Jones, I think that will impact them. But I think if you were really to talk to the fans of each one of these teams, and if you were really to kind of dig into the team, the ones that hurt the most are often the linemen, right? So let's say your starting tackles went out. Let's say your center went out. Let's say your defensive, end went out, or whatever it may be. I mean, look at how much it impacted the 49ers when they had so many defensive players out, or when Trent Williams was out. I mean, that completely changed everything for Brock Purdy. And so I think that while the quarterbacks are the ones that we can see and they're the most obvious, I think that losing some of those skill position players are probably even more impactful on a team and how it functions. Will it have the instant impact, let's say, of, the Kirk Cousins going down? Because could Kirk Cousins have beat the Broncos last night? Absolutely, he could have, without question. And that's no shade on Josh Dobbs. It's just a maturity thing. It's just a veteran thing. You know what I mean? He's just been around longer. And so I think that was really interesting. And that's no shade to the Broncos. They just are still that kind of middle ground team. And that's okay. That's where they should be. But so I think that if you were to dig a little deeper, that probably some of those other injuries were even worse. But they are adding up early this year. We often talk about December is when these injury guys start falling off the edge, and you're not seeing them. And it seemed like a lot of these were early. What that does in turn is give some of these guys a chance to come back. And I know Aaron Rodgers keeps insisting he's coming back. There is no reason for Aaron Rodgers to come back. You are not making the playoffs. There's no reason to do it. They've benched Zach Wilson. They did it yesterday. And so just let it go. You know what I mean? And so you guys aren't getting anywhere. Heal appropriately so then you can come back and break something else next year, because that's what he'll do. So I just think it's true. It's true. I called this one. It's just true.
Just retire, Aaron. Like, just accept.
I know. I feel
right?
I know that's not how you want to go out, and I feel for him that way, but
I kind of do. I kind of don't. Yeah. I'm just like, it's time to go.
Yeah. So anyway,
sun.
so when it comes to injuries, I do think that those are probably the most glaring, but a couple of good things, you see these injuries like the Seahawks now. So we were, all of us being Seahawks fans, very worried about Geno Smith last night. Looks like that he's going to try and play on Thursday. He might not ever play again after that because they'll murder him, but you never know. We can hope. So we'll see. But
they need to start. What are they doing with our O-line? Oh, what are they doing?
Hopefully Abe Lucas will be back. That's another whole conversation.
Like,
so
they got it right for the first 2 quarters and then just decided to switch it. Like, what are you doing to me?
Well, Jason Peters is 41 years old. He can only do it for so long. There's a whole
But Geno obviously likes him.
Yeah. So, all right. So, yeah. So it's good. So anyway, but I think that the injuries this year just seem to be just kind of earlier in the season than we normally would. But when football counts is down in the trenches, it's in December, and that's when it's all going to matter. So we'll have to see how some of these other teams hold up.
Well, on this topic, we had 2 questions come in. So Dave was asking, what are the main causes of the very obvious issues with the Jets offense?
The quarterback. Right? Like, it is Zach Wilson.
Well, yes, but also Nathaniel Hackett. Just putting it out there.
Yeah, but he was terrible last year too, before Hackett got there. You know what I mean?
I'm just saying, like, he got sacked from Denver for a reason. Don't make him your offensive coach. He's my next topic. Sorry.
Yeah. It is true. We'll talk about him for sure, because there's a lot to talk about there. I completely agree with you. But I think that the Zach Wilson experiment needs to be done. They need to start looking for another quarterback. Sorry, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, your backup. And so we need to see how it's just dumb. I'm sorry. And so I think that we need to, he needs to do that. Plus, I think even if they got the play calling right, I'm not sure that Zach Wilson in that line could execute it even. So there just seems to be a lot of problems there too. They have a lot of really highly skilled players. They just don't ever seem to match up.
I think with all these injuries, impacts on what I mind, let's kind of look at the current playoff picture then. So, Dana, like, what are, I suppose, like, any surprises or teams that are kind of, performing against odds, if you will?
There are words. 4 words. The goddamn Lions.
Shona, why don't you go ahead?
I'm going to come in after.
Okay. So the current playoff picture, there's absolutely no surprises. And that's kind of a problem, right? Because the beginning of the season, you could see who the teams were that were really good and who was not. And that's exactly the way it stayed. There's been very little movement, for lack of a better word, on that. So if you look at it right now, the Chiefs and the Eagles, who play tonight in Kansas, in a very rainy, gloomy, cold Kansas City, that's going to be a fun game. They play each other tonight, so that'll be interesting to see. In the AFC, you have the Ravens in second, the Jags in third, the Dolphins in fourth, just like we all thought. And then you have the Browns, the Texans, and the Steelers. So the 2 real surprises on the AFC side, I think, are without question the Steelers. With their stats, I don't even know how the hell they've won 4 games, let alone how many they have. It's just crazy. And obviously, I think it's going to catch up to them. And we've seen this before. I don't know if we talked about this last time, but we've seen this before. Remember that year where the Steelers won 11 in a row? They were like 11-0 and then didn't win another game and lost out in the first round of the playoffs. Like they get these momentums, and Mike Tomlin wills them to win, and then they fall apart in the end. So that one. But the Texans, I think, are a real surprise. We knew they would be better, but I don't think that we expected them to be sitting there in sixth in the playoff seeding. So I think that is really great. And good for them. They're 6-4. The Houston Texans, you guys, are 6-4. It's fantastic. All right. So on the NFC side, you have the Eagles sitting at 1, 8-1, without question, the best team in the NFC right now. The Lions sitting at 2. And I want to say this, and it was said 1,000 times yesterday online and on the broadcast, but I'm going to say it again. The Detroit Lions have not been 8-2 since the 1960s. So this is huge. This is huge for this city. It's huge for the team. It's huge. Then you have the 49ers sitting in third, the Saints at 5-5 at fourth. And then you have the Cowboys at fifth, the Seattle Seahawks in sixth, and the Vikings at seventh. So even with the Seahawks and the Vikings losing yesterday, the Seahawks, I think, went from 5th to 6th, and the Vikings didn't move. And why is that? It's because every other team underneath of them is just floundering. And it's true. I mean, I'm not even trying to be rude. It's just the truth. When you go down further, you have, the Packers are at 8th at 4-6. Now on the AFC side, it's a little better. At least the Bills are sitting there just outside of the playoffs at 6-5. At least they have a winning record. There's not another winning record under there. The AFC has a handful at 5-5. The NFC has a ton at 4-6 and 4-7. And then it just goes downhill from there. So I think that is the playoff picture is kind of almost set. I hate to say that, unless there's a massive fall apart from Seattle, which could very well happen with their schedule coming up, or with the Texans or the Steelers, which probably is the other one that could possibly kind of fall apart. You almost feel like the Bills could pop up and down, but for the most part, a lot of these are set.
You're right. I do worry about Seattle's schedule.
You should,
just because it is really tough for the next 4 games. It's horrid. It's actually disgusting. And it worries me that if Gino is not 100%, Drew Lock is just not a great backup. We saw that yesterday. He's just terrible. Let's be honest. So that does worry me a little bit. But then I look at the teams that are in the hunt. If you've got Tampa Bay making that, they did an amazing punt yesterday and then let the 49ers run for 62 yards or something for that return touchdown. Their defense are letting up a lot of ground, which is not great. And then you've got the Rams, who just aren't singing at the minute, even though they did beat us yesterday.
Yeah, it's the rules.
Yeah.
Rock, paper, scissors. It's the rules. The Rams have to beat the Seahawks. The Seahawks will beat the Niners. The Niners beat the Rams. It's just the way it works.
So hopefully we beat the Niners. That would be nice, but I'm not watching it. And I feel like the teams that are in the hunt are a lot worse off than Seattle at the minute. Mm-hmm. And also the Vikings as well. I think they've got enough to do what they can with Josh Dobbs. Without, with losing Kirk. I do think the Vikings would be higher up in the playoff standings if it wasn't for losing Kirk Cousins. In my opinion. I am surprised at the Lions. I think what I like about it is they've quietly gone about their business. And I said this about Baltimore Ravens, and they lost that week. So sorry, Baltimore. But they have completely, they had on Sunday, they had a 2.4% chance of defeating the Bears. And then obviously the Bears just decided to completely catapult themselves into oblivion. And then, Jared Goff and his offense clicked into gear. A game-ending sack from Aiden Hutchinson closed the show. So it was a total breathless comeback. And that's something you haven't seen the Lions being able to produce for years now, for absolute years. Mm-hmm. They always see them get close, but then they always seem to falter at the last hurdle. And I don't know what's happening with them that's making it work, but I do think they still have a few issues that they have to look out for. Mm-hmm. There was 4 turnovers, and they were a little bit ill-disciplined in the game against the Bears. And I think if they're going to really mount a playoff charge, they will have to work that out. I think everyone else, though, I'm not surprised where everyone's sitting and standing. It's kind of that's what I kind of thought at the start of the season.
It's definitely been an interesting one. It's got 2 questions here. Gary asks, and maybe this might be one for the next one. So in fact, again, I'm going to move that to elsewhere. Chris asks, what's going on in Buffalo?
God knows.
We've been talking about Buffalo all year.
Yeah, no. What is going on with my Buffalo? I have no idea.
We've been talking about Buffalo all year. There is something completely out of sync in Buffalo, and I don't know what it is. People are trying to blame it on Josh Allen. They're trying to blame it on the coach. They're trying to blame it on Stephon Diggs. They're trying to blame it on Stephon Diggs' brother, who plays for the Cowboys. They're trying to blame it on everybody because they can't figure it out. Well, that's because there's just something off. I don't know if there is, there's a difference between being hurt and being injured. And how you tell a coach what you are you hurt or are you injured, depends on if it goes on an injury report. So who knows if there's some hurts out there that is getting in the way. We have no idea, and we won't know, to be honest with you, until they need an excuse at the end of the season. And then the other thing I think a lot of times is just there's a lot of inconsistency there. They just, undisciplined is a really good word. You use that. I heard someone use it about Seattle yesterday. I think we're seeing a lot of undisciplined football. And what it came down to, I think over the last few years, we've seen kind of these freewheeling, crazy Patrick Mahomes slider throws, like all this stuff. It's like, no, everybody back to basics. We're going to run this ball. We're going to do this. We're going to do that, because it doesn't work for everybody. And so we can't all be, crazy freewheeling players. So let's go ahead, bring it back to basics. And we'll see what they do. They could kick it up here at the end of the year. I could see that from them. I also could see it out of Denver, which is a whole different conversation. But I do think that in Buffalo right now, they are not meshing. There is a communication or some sort of issue going on there. And they just can't sync. At least they won. I mean, they won yesterday, so that's great. But
they should, though.
Huh?
They should, though, over the Jets. Like, they should beat the Jets.
Yes. And they did. They beat them soundly, which is what good teams should do. Good teams should beat bad opponents, right? It doesn't always work that way, especially if it's divisional. So you never know what's going to happen. But yeah, I think that they just, the hot and cold nature of them, though, is quite exhausting. I'm sure their fan base is sick of it.
Yeah. And it's like, you could argue that, they've changed parts of their roster and that would be why they're not clicking, but they actually haven't changed much of their roster. It's a similar team to last year. And it just doesn't seem to be clicking for them the way that people think that it should. And I don't know what it is, but we're never going to find out until like the end of the season.
When they need a reason. Yep.
Yeah. But something is not quite working in Buffalo. And it's sad to see because I really like Buffalo.
I do too.
Same, definitely. So all these factors, injuries, wins, losses, they all add up and they put a spotlight on team leadership. So that brings us to our next topic, coaches in the hot seat. Now, ladies, I'm going to put this to you both. And I'll start with you, Dana. Who do you think is feeling the pressure right now, and which coach needs like a strong finish for the season to secure their job?
Half the league. I'm not kidding. I think that there's going to be a lot of unhappy people on Black Monday.
Yeah. There's like 8, I would say, that is in the hot seat right now.
Well, go ahead, Shona. You have a list. Go ahead.
I actually think Sean McDermott might, I don't think they would, but I think if they have a lackluster finish to the season, what do they say like that? What would the higher up say that? Oh yeah, well definitely Sean's our man for the next season. I think he turns out taking all your stuff from the Carolina Panthers maybe isn't such a good move. It doesn't mean that because he won against the Jets that his spot is any safer, because they're 6-5 for the season. At the moment, they're not in the playoffs, and I think for a team like the Bills, that is somewhere they shouldn't be. I think the ownership will realize that if they they limp towards the end of the season and just make the playoffs and then get knocked out the first round. So I think he does really have to watch like where he's at. I think Frank Reich, the Carolina Panthers, I don't think that's going well. Even Robert Saleh at New York Jets, I love him to pieces, but I just feel like he's had a few seasons now, and yes, he brought Aaron Rodgers in, and obviously that's he got injured and that was not his plan. But you're stuck with Zach Wilson, who is just he's not the guy for you, and you're still putting him in games, and he's just there's guys out there that are on free agency that would have came to the team when the guy who clearly doesn't want to be there and has made every excuse for every loss not on him as your quarterback. I think it's quite naive from Saleh. So they would be my top 3, I would say. Also, I think Mike Vrabel at the Tennessee Titans. Need I go on?
No, there's so many. You're not kidding. But that's the whole point, right? I think that with the Panthers, especially, who is that decision of Bryce Young going to fall on their head? And is it Bryce Young's fault? That line is a disaster. That kid's more sacked than anyone else. It's like, does he make bad mistakes? Does he not? It was at the wrong choice. Who takes the blame for that? I think that you also have to look at, to be quite honest with you, is Arizona going to give, their head coach 1 more year? I think they will, but don't tell me his butt's not warm and his coordinators could be out of there for sure. Right. I'm beginning to wonder if the Rams fall apart the rest of the year, if Sean McVay finally does decide, I think I will go make millions being a commentator, which his voice drives me insane. So that's going to be like the worst thing for me ever.
I know. Me too.
Worst. I hope he just goes back to college or something. But so yeah, he's so whiny. He's that kid in high school that you just wanted to punch because he wouldn't show up. Yeah, that's him. Anyway, so
I thought he was like the best thing ever. Like, best thing since sliced bread. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's true. I don't like him. It's true. So you have to look at those two in the NFC West alone. I think you have to look at the Giants head coach. I think you have to look at, there's just so many teams. Doug Peterson, you're safe, darling. Huh?
I even think Bill Belichick could go. You know what I mean? Like I feel like
he'll go on his own free will.
I know.
Did you hear that rumor last week? That rumor last week that he was going to end up taking over the Raiders.
I've heard that they'll treat it, but yeah.
I'm like, you poor fans.
Haven't they
been? What are they trying to do to that fan base? Are they trying to make them like self-combust?
I don't know. God, Lord, who knows? Yeah. So I think that there's a good number. I think there'll be a lot of coordinators that roll. I think that I don't think Dable will go anywhere, but his coordinators will probably be cleaned out. I think that there is going to be a lot of change. And I'm a little surprised we haven't seen more already. I know a couple of teams have let some coordinators go and such, and then of course the Raiders completely cleaned house. But I do think that that's really, it's interesting to figure out, to look at these and say, where does the blame actually lie? Because in the NFL, you never know the truth. You really, truly don't know what's going on. And so I think that we have to be really careful of that. When the 49ers weren't doing well earlier, it was Brock Purdy's fault. No, it was Shanahan's fault. No, it was York's fault. It was this. And so because of that, you don't ever really know. And so you have to kind of look at ownership and say, what are they going to do? And I think there is a couple of ownerships. Ron Rivera, we might need to talk about him just a little bit. I know you can like the guy all you want, but honest to God, he can't get anything rolling in Washington. And so it's like, all right, what have you done? Not much. Let's move on. Sam Howell is keeping that team even sort of alive. And that's it. You gutted the rest of the team. And that's kind of your indicator, right? They got rid of their two best defensive players. Their coach is going to be next. I think that they're just going to gut it out and hope for the best. So yeah, lots of interesting coaches on the hot seat this year, I think.
I also think, I'm just singling him out because he was terrible at the Broncos last year, so he might as well single him out again. Nathaniel Hackett is still not proving himself at offensive coordinator in New York. What a shock.
Well, that's because Aaron Rodgers isn't there. Honest to God, look at Nathaniel Hackett. When was he successful? When Aaron Rodgers was his quarterback. The minute Aaron was gone, or he left there to go to Denver, disaster. With another quarterback that is good. It's not like Russell wasn't a good quarterback. Hackett was terrible. So what do? He's like, I guess I need to go find my security blanket. Off he goes to go be with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. He's stuck with Zach Wilson. Proves again. Cannot do anything without Aaron Rodgers. So become Aaron Rodgers' personal quarterback coach and leave the NFL alone, for God's sake.
Yeah, because he's now ranked 30th. He's actually making Wilson rank 30th in the league. He's actually managed to make his quarterback rating drop because Wilson's quarterback rating last year was 38.5. He's now 30.8 under Hackett. Like, you cannot make that up as to how bad the guy is as a defensive coordinator.
I do wonder this. I wonder what they're going to give up to get the first pick in the draft. The Jets are going to, even if Aaron Rodgers sitting there, at some point they're going to realize Aaron Rodgers, we got 1 to 2 years out of him. We've got to find somebody else. So maybe they'll wait 1 more year. I don't know. We'll see.
Honestly, Nathaniel Hackett, just leave the NFL. Do not come back. Please. Just leave. just get out the door. You and AA Rod, you take your own show somewhere else.
For sure.
Gary asks, just how is Joe Staley still in a job? And then how long till Riverboat Ron sails into sunset, which I know we've just mentioned, but let's talk about Joe.
I think it's hilarious. Why is he mad at Joe Staley? What did Joe Staley do to him? I mean, he's just a commentator. He's kind of an asshole on Twitter. Him and Thibodeau out of New York got into it back and forth and back and forth. I don't know if you guys have read that text. He's like, "Who are you, little kid? You're brand new to the league." He's like, "You're just an old man." Like, they were at it. So I think if if I think that's who he's talking about. Is there another Joe Staley I don't know about? But I'm like,
no idea.
I was just laughing at this comment.
We have to read it
Brutal, Chris.
So Chris Lawton wrote that QBR is dropping below Zach's prime dating age for a partner. Yes, we know he likes the older ladies for sure.
He does indeed. He likes the moms.
Yeah,
the friends'
it does.
moms.
It looks like Miles has a question there in chat too. I can't pull it up, but if one of you guys want to pull it up, you too. Look at you guys. Okay, Miles says, "I know it's early, but do you think Seattle looks at Penix Jr.?" I have an answer for that, unless one of you guys want to take it.
Go for it.
Yeah, the answer is yes. I think that they are going to look at all of the quarterbacks, and that's, I'm not trying to shade Geno. You know, I like Geno, and I think Geno would probably be okay for another year, but they're going to start priming that player. They're going to, and there's two reasons why for it, in my opinion. Number one, and I don't know if it's Penix exactly, but I think they're going to look at all of them, right? Penix, is it Penix? Penix? I can't. It sounds a lot like penis, but I know that's not it. So anyway, but it's true. I'm sorry, but he's fantastic.
Oh, we're going to call our quarterback penis.
No, it's Penix. Anyway, he's fantastic player. He really is a lot of fun to watch, and he would fit well in Seattle. But there's two reasons, Miles. Let me get back to the point here. My thought is, number one, they're going to start looking for that younger quarterback just to see, in case they don't have a high draft pick, which they probably won't, is it going to be a project situation? Or two, what are they going to have to get up, and who is dead set on getting those higher quarterbacks that they're not going to be able to trade up for, that sort of situation. The other thing is that Geno is going to be in the second of a 3-year contract. They can start getting out of that contract pretty easily next year, maybe in the third year, cakewalk to get out of. So we'll have to see how that goes, and we'll have to see how Geno responds, because last year we saw him really kind of take a nosedive toward the end of the season. If we see that again, not due to injury, because injury is no one's fault, then they're definitely going to have to look into that a little more. The last one is Pete. I think Pete is going to want to instill a quarterback in a young quarterback before he leaves. And I know Pete's not going anywhere, but at the same time, he's the oldest coach in the league. And so I think if we're lucky, Seattle might have maybe 2 more years left of Pete. And so I'm beginning to think that he might want to instill that. But then what's going to happen is he's going to like the new quarterback and not want to leave. And then we won't get the fresh. It's a whole thing. But anyway, so yeah, I think that they're looking at all of the young quarterbacks for next year. And probably what it's going to take to get them.
It's pronounced Penix.
Thank you. I won't call him Penix anymore. I'm sorry.
Penix, not
my pronunciation is a little worse.
Mine too.
And the funny thing is, I watch his games. I hear him say it. It doesn't stick. I'm so sorry.
I also forget people's names halfway through, and I'm talking about them. Sorry, Josh Dobbs. Sorry. I'll remember it next time.
I really like him.
I'll remember it next time. I promise.
So sorry. Penix. He's a fun player. If you guys haven't watched him, go watch his highlights. He's fun to watch.
Definitely need to do that.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Well, guys, I think that is all for us today. For those who joined us, I hope you've enjoyed it. We will be back every other Monday, 6:30 UK time, 1:30 Eastern time. So yeah, make sure you subscribe, and look forward to seeing you next time. So thanks for joining.